Just because the FAA doesn't define the terms careless and reckless in the regulations, does that mean they're going to do whatever they want if you're in non-compliance with the regulation? No. I don't mean to keep kind of beating up on you on these comments, but I want to make sure this is clear because these are some of the things I do hear out there, and I want to make sure we all understand what's going on here. So, you are correct. The FAA does not define careless and reckless in the definitions for the regulations, and that's because those are common terms that are already defined in the dictionary. Typically, they reserve those definitions areas for aviation related terms or terms that are affecting the safety within the regulation. And so when you look in the dictionary for a careless operation, it's basically saying that you're not paying attention to the details and you didn't do something intentionally. And when you look at reckless, they're saying it's the opposite. It was intentional and you didn't care about the consequences. And actually, if you look in the FAA's order for compliance and enforcement, the 2150.3, they do lay out careless and reckless definitions in there. And typically, you don't care about that because you're not trying to do a careless or a reckless operation. And so really those definitions are in the 2150.3 for the inspectors to apply if there is an enforcement or if there is some sort of non-compliance with the regulation. But when you look at those definitions and they relate them to aviation, they're pretty much saying the same thing. A careless operation is one that attention was not given to and it was unintentional. And a reckless one is the opposite. It was something that was intentional. So an example would be, let's say you take off in an aircraft that's typically at the very weight limit every single day. So you're fully loaded every day and you always run the weight and balance. And this particular flight, you just forgot to run the weight and balance because you were in a rush. You took off a little bit overweight and maybe an incident or an accident happened. The FAA comes back and they say, let's see your performance, and you find out it was overweight. You didn't do it intentionally. You just didn't pay attention to what you were doing. You know what the requirements are and the limitations and the regs say, and it was just something you overlooked. That would be a careless operation. Now, let's say the same scenario, except this time you do run your weight and balance and performance, and you say, well, we're going to take off overweight, but you say, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyways. That's something you know about, but you continue to do it without caring about the consequences. That's a reckless operation. And so when it comes to the regulation itself, in the regulation, they don't say careless and, they say careless or reckless operation. So the 2150.3 actually says generally for every non-compliance with the regulation,